Thank you very much. I appreciate being here. It took a bit of a struggle because of my technophobia, but nevertheless, I'm pleased to be here. And I thank Deb for inviting me, and I thank Russ for that wonderful prayer that I hope we can all take to heart. Okay, I am going to start, and I apologize because I read, because I find that I go over if I just do it spontaneously. So let's begin. The title of the talk is Making a Way Out of No Way. The Oblate Sisters of Providence Pursue Higher Education Under Jim Crow. From the inception of the Oblate Sisters of Providence, their Black racial identity, their status as women religious, and their teaching ministry had constituted three critical components of their existence. However, as the Oblate Sisters pursued the original ministry of education into the 20th century, they confronted new obstacles. My presentation examines how this pioneering sisterhood exercised agency on its own behalf as it strove to advance its educational opportunities by expanding its support networks within the American Catholic Church. It further demonstrates how these efforts required the sisterhood to reframe its own understandings of its existence as persons of color and religious at the same time in Jim Crow America. Catholic education specialists had recognized the problem the lack of formal training for nuns in education theory posed. Excuse me. Between 1873 and 1902, white sisterhoods in the Archdiocese of Baltimore established their own normal and collegiate institutions to provide programs for the theoretical and practical training of their sisters. Such expansion equipped their members to fulfill the increasingly rigorous educational standards states across the nation imposed on their teachers in the first decades of the 20th century. Such professionalization of Catholic education required normal school certification or advanced degrees from Catholic colleges and universities, most of which at the time denied access to Black students, even women religious. In this context, the Oblate Corporate Council in 1917 decided something must be done to get a summer school started at the Mother House for the sisters. The remark, after many unsuccessful attempts to obtain help from various religious congregations, suggests that Oblate Superior General had approached local white sisterhoods with established normal institutes and colleges for assistance without success. The Mother Superior finally asked Brother Isidore, the provincial of the Xaverian Brothers of Teaching Order, who promised to help. He assigned Brothers Simeon and later Bartholomew and Bede to conduct summer normal school sessions at the Oblate Mother House through 1926. Brother Bede persuaded Villanova College in Pennsylvania to admit Oblate members to its summer extension courses in 1924, for which Mother Catherine Drexel, I should say St. Catherine Drexel, the founder of the Blessed Sacrament Sisters, covered all costs. The Oblate corporate minutes further noted Drexel's concern for Oblate comfort at Villanova when she offered that the Oblate students, quote, would take meals at the same table with the Blessed Sacrament Sisters in order that the Oblates would feel more at home. St. Louis University in Missouri also admitted Oblate students to its summer extension courses in 1928. The Oblate community sought educational advancement for its teachers on 3 levels: high school education for sisters without diplomas, normal school certification for primary grade teachers, and college degrees for high school teachers. While scholarship support existed for white sisterhoods to educate their members, nothing comparable financed education for the Black sisterhoods. Furthermore, had both total access to Catholic institutions and full funding existed, the Oblate community's relatively small size and their financial dependence on maximum employment of their teachers in both Oblate and diocesan schools would have prevented significant Oblate full-time pursuit of higher education. Following the model established with the Xaverian brothers in 1917, the Oblate community initially relied on part-time pursuit of education, either on Saturdays or during the summers. In 1929, Oblate Superior General Consuela Clifford received permission from the School Sisters of Notre Dame for 4 Oblate sisters to attend their Saturday extension classes at Notre Dame College. Then, in 1931, Clifford initiated arrangements for a summer normal extension from Villanova to be taught by 2 degreed Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament at the Oblate Mother House. In her April 14, 1931 letter to the sisterhood announcing these plans, Clifford emphasized, quote, "Summer school means hard work, but thousands of religious are in the same condition. So let us murmur a prayer, buckle on the armor of courage, and press forward. We cannot afford to be slackers if we would continue to carry on the work of education." Clifford further observed, "The time is rapidly nearing when no teacher, religious or lay, is going to be permitted to teach without a state teacher certificate. This ruling already holds true in some states. Now, it is not possible to obtain a state teacher certificate without normal school training. And before doing normal work, it is first necessary to finish high school work." Appealing to Oblate pride in their historic teaching mission, she exhorted, "Hence, we all realize the importance and necessity of doing all in our power to render ourselves more worthy of our name as a teaching community. By striving to keep up with ranks of educators of the day. Otherwise," she warned, "we shall have to step out of line. And what a distressing and shameful thing that would be after 100 years of service to the poorest of God's children." Finally, she assured those sisters who have never taught or perhaps will never teach that one and all form part of this teaching community, and that the work you do outside of the classroom is equally important with that of the teachers. She concluded, "Therefore, your interest in the educational advance of the community is, I'm sure, just as strong as those who must struggle and study to make themselves fit for the present day classroom requirements." The sisterhood's urgent focus on producing certified and degree teaching personnel further strained pre-existing class and color tensions within the sisterhood. Colorism, or discrimination based on skin color, existed in both white and Black societies, and occasionally penetrated the spiritual boundaries separating the Oblate sisterhood from secular influence. The 1929 centennial photographs of the Oblate community document the physically inclusive nature of Oblate membership, confirming what Father John Greaves had earlier characterized as 50 religious of all shades, from all but white to downright ebony, who have consecrated their lives to God and their neighbor. While their complexioned diversity proved a tribute to Oblate inclusivity, it also provided a fertile field for strained interpersonal relationships in a racist society. Sometimes ethnic differences contributed to racial tensions. On May 8, 1928, the Oblate Analyst reported that a disappointed postulant from Puerto Rico mistakenly thought she was going to the Mission Helpers, a community of white sisters. She says all her people are white. Maybe, but she isn't. We advised her to write for return passage to Puerto Rico as she did not bring sufficient funds. An incident in 1933 involving a Cuban sister further exemplified differing cultural understandings of racial identity, which could characterize African American and African Caribbean sisters. This sister, quote, has been dissatisfied for some time and resented having to wait on, quote, these colored people, as she expressed it. Her conduct was more or less disedifying at all times during the 20 years she had been in the community. Therefore, there was not much regret when she expressed the wish to return to her home. Colorism would continue to challenge the harmony of the Oblate sisterhood for some time. Integrating white colleges provided Black women religious with new opportunities to convert racial indignities and humiliations into purifying trials in the pursuit of spiritual perfection unique to their experience. The Oblate leadership's compilation of 17 suggestions for the sisters attending college proves instructive. Strict prohibitions against accepting invitations to visit with members of other communities, participating in parties, either in the private rooms of the sisters or at any convent on the grounds, going to any sister's room to study, either to receive or to give assistance, and rules always requiring a walking companion on campus. Quote, one of your own community is preferable unless courtesy demands you to walk with a sister of another community. And asking questions of any professor only in the presence of another sister ensured not only Oblate observance of the modest, retiring behavior deemed appropriate for all women religious, but also of Jim Crow's racial etiquette of separation. The extraordinary stipulation, quote, pay no attention to any remarks relative to the Negro race, whether made by white sisters, the professor, or secular students. As religious, we have no race issues. Needs explanation. Throughout their history, the Oblate sisters had considered themselves a teaching order of, quote, persons of color and religious at the same time. The intersectionality of being Black women, women religious, and teachers forming co-equal elements of their identity. The statement, quote, as religious, we have no race issues, did not deny their Black racial identity, but rather reframed it in relation to their identities as teachers and women religious. To maintain their viability as teachers by attending white colleges required them to transcend the slings and arrows of racial discrimination by, quote, striving to prevent or practice the perfection which is demanded of you by the promise you made at your profession. The mandate, if you experience humiliations, show no resentment. Oops. If accepted in the right spirit, they may be far more useful for your sanctification than your degree will be. That resonated with the Oblate practice of transforming intended racial insult into spiritual benefit. Acting on their obligations as women religious to pursue spiritual perfection would thus lessen the insults of racial discrimination they encountered as they pursued the necessary courses to remain qualified educators. Mother Consuela constantly advised sisters at colleges against discussing race. She cautioned a sister invited to write a piece for publication, quote, to avoid anything which borders too strongly on the bitter feelings of race problems. You know that articles of this kind stir up antagonistic sentiments. Don't publish anything, please, without submitting it to us first. Oblate humor occasionally eased the situation. Clifford told the story. The sisters at Villanova have a joke this year, and that was the year 1931, about their nationality. Some of the newcomers of white sisterhoods have decided that the Oblates are Mexican sisters, as they cannot conceive that colored people can be ladylike. The sisters puzzled just why they had been taken for Mexicans, unless these white sisters think that all colored people are dark. Issues of both class and color inherit, in this case, of mistaken identity. Enforced segregation permitted such ignorant misconceptions to survive. Dr. Thomas Wyatt Turner, a biology professor at Hampton Institute in Virginia, had founded the Federated Colored Catholics, a national network of Black Catholic organizations in 1925 as, quote, an action group led by Black Catholics and for Black Catholics that would ensure that the Black Catholic community take a responsible and leadership role in American Catholicism and American society. On July 9th, 1931, Turner invited Clifford to give an address on education at the FCC September Convention in St. Louis. Instead, she delegated Sister Laurentia Short, stationed in St. Louis at St. Rita's Academy, and one of two Oblate members attending the Summer Institute at St. Louis University, to address the audience. More than a conventional plea for funds, Short's address revealed perceptive insights into existing Oblate senses of their mission and agency. Citing the demands of the Black Catholic community for higher education under Catholic leadership, she stated, Catholic students, you as Catholic parents, and we as Catholic educators know that the salvation of our young people lies not necessarily in higher education in the secular sense. Recalling the proud century-old Oblate history of us as educators, she asserted, indeed, the Oblate Sisters of Providence have found the one perfect form in which to express the great thought of service for love's sake. She then introduced the current urgent demands for more and excellently equipped sisters, and assure the audience of oblate willingness, quote, by redoubling our energies, we can multiply our deeds. For this have we come into the world, that we may spend and be spent in the service of a great cause. Short emphasized, quote, our sisters are well able to meet the heavy demands made upon them by the increasing exactness of state boards of education and oblate willingness to endure the heavy strain this summer work places upon the health of our sisters. Nevertheless, the sisters, quote, are finding it increasingly difficult to meet the financial obligations entailed by this program of longer and higher training, including buying expensive equipment, securing added teachers for our summer schools, and paying the tuition for attendance at outside institutions of higher learning. White sisterhoods had scholarships and donations to subsidize their advanced education. But the Oblate sisters see their expenses increase as their income decreases. For let it not be forgotten that the depression, which weighs heavily on all, just now afflicts us with a double load. Short explained that for the sisterhood to compete with public schools, we must have some assured source of income to meet the expenses incurred. Our people must stand back of us by founding scholarships and making generous contributions toward providing university training for the candidates for the work of the Oblate Sisters of Providence. Short concluded, firm in the belief that nothing is too good for the youth of our race, the Oblate Sisters of Providence are devoting themselves wholeheartedly to do their part in the higher education of the Negro youth in the United States. We ask your cooperation. This eloquent oblate plea for Black Catholic financial support yielded few results because the depression afflicting the sisterhood, quote, with a double load, also trapped most Black people historically positioned at the bottom of the economic ladder, just as relentlessly in its grip of high unemployment and minimal discretionary income. Not until the 1940s did the wealthy and socially prominent white benefactor Carolyn Jenkins establish Catholic Scholarships for Negroes Incorporated to serve this purpose. Wherever they taught, the Oblate sisters had to comply with state requirements for teacher accreditation and college degrees. Unlike the white sisterhoods, the Oblate sisters had confronted the obstacle of racial exclusion from Catholic colleges for many years, preventing their acquiring the necessary academic degrees. Clifford addressed this situation frankly in her correspondence with Bishop Emmett Walsh of South Carolina concerning their staffing of the Immaculate Conception High School in Charleston in 1933. Her letter reflected her consummate administrative skill, racial awareness, and religious obedience. In a previous letter, Walsh had pleaded urgently for a full complement of sisters with degrees in hand, and as a last resort, had threatened to replace the Oblates with white sisters. Clifford responded, quote, as a matter of fact, it might be truly said that if Catholic institutions of higher learning had opened their doors to our sisters sooner and with greater welcome, neither Your Excellency nor I would be in the present embarrassing situation as regards the Immaculate Conception High School. Now that better opportunity is given us for getting a higher education, we are bending every personal effort and all our community resources to the end that many of our sisters will have degrees. She then proposed a temporary staffing solution of 2 Oblate sisters with degrees and 2 lay teacher graduates of Xavier University, the only Black Catholic college in the nation, for the immediate academic year, with assurances of 4 Oblate sisters with diplomas in the next year. Clifford reasoned, with such a faculty, Your Excellency can secure recognition for the high school to your satisfaction, and we can be spared the embarrassment of feeling that we are a handicap rather than an asset to our own people. She concluded pointedly and poignantly, if, however, you feel that the continuance of our sisters means the endangering of the whole project, and that other sisters can more immediately and adequately meet Your Excellency's requirements in the best interests of our own race and for the greater glory of God, we stand ready to do Your Excellency's bidding. On August 19th, Walsh replied that he considered her suggestion of the 2 lay teachers a happy solution. The Reverend John T. Gillard served as Oblate chaplain from 1930 until his death in 1942. In this capacity, he worked unceasingly to promote the sisterhood's welfare financially, educationally, and spiritually. In January 1935, Gillard obtained Mother Consuela's permission to allow Reverend John Dudeen of Louisville, Kentucky, to film Oblate Mother House activities. Dudeen made movies of Catholic mission work among Black people for educational purposes. The analyst explained, Father Dudeen sponsors the work being so well done by the Catholic Students' Mission Crusade to foster better and more amicable relations between the Black and white races in the United States. The younger generation will be the future adults, and what is now being inculcated will carry over during the years to come. Father Gillard is also very much interested in the Student Mission Crusade. Indeed, Gillard's active involvement in the Student Mission Crusade over the years contributed substantively to the eventual integration of Catholic higher education. Gillard proved invaluable as one church agent facilitating Oblate higher education. White sisterhoods, another. From the late 1920s through the 1950s, several white sisterhoods responded to the Oblate Sisters accreditation plight with Christian charity toward, quote, our dear sisters in Christ, unquote. In defiance of racial custom, they gradually escalated their outreach from conducting high school classes and extension normal institutes at the Oblate Mother House to admitting Oblate members to their Saturday and summer schools for their own sisters, to enrolling Oblate members in their regular school term classes and waiving tuition fees. The sisterhoods inscribed on the Oblate honor roll of perpetual gratitude for their courageous interracial cooperation include the School Sisters of Notre Dame, the Blessed Sacrament Sisters, the Daughters of Charity, Emmitsburg, Maryland, and the Sisters of Charity, Leavenworth, Kansas, the Benedictine Sisters of Atchison, Kansas, and the Cincinala Dominican Sisters of Rosary College in River Forest, Illinois. And this is only a partial listing. Father John T. Gillard, other clergy, and several white sisterhoods enabled the Oblate Sisterhood to breach the barriers of racism in pursuit of higher education. Nevertheless, the Oblate community itself remained primary agents in accomplishing this task. In 1935, their corporate council agreed to enroll 2 sisters in college full-time during the regular school term to facilitate getting their school, St. Francis Academy, accredited by the state as soon as we have 4-degree sisters. All the members of the council see the necessity of getting the academy accredited as soon as possible. Otherwise, we will continue to lose pupils as all our colored people desire a school recognized by the state. No other inducements will satisfy them. Hence, we must make every sacrifice to reach the desired goal. Superiors General Consuela Clifford and her assistant and later successor, Teresa Shockley, demonstrated not only extraordinary leadership, but also great administrative and people skills as they successfully negotiated the uncharted territory of Black sisters pursuing higher education. They manipulated the interrelationship of their tripartite identities as Black women, women religious, and educators as circumstances required in order to balance the intersectionality of their unique experiences in Jim Crow America. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Morrow.
You are welcome.
Thank you so much. I have a lot of questions myself, but we'll open it up to others. If you have a question right now, you can raise your hand with that little reaction button down there. If you can't figure that out, if you just put your hand up, I will look for you. So we'll start off with Peggy Thompson.
Hi, Diane. How are you?
Hi, Peggy. I'm fine. How are you?
Very interesting as always. I had a question. I have 2 questions and they're short. So I hope you can answer both of them. The first one has to do with the color issue that you raised toward the beginning of your talk. And I'm wondering if you have any information on the Holy Family Sisters and whether they faced similar concerns. And that kind of leads me into my second question, which is about Xavier University, which I believe opened in 1925, which
I'm
would
not
have
sure
been
of the date.
around that. And I guess the reason I'm raising it is that it's in the period that you've been talking to us about. And I'm wondering if there was any kind of possibility of the sisters getting scholarships to go there, or whether any Oblate sisters did attend Xavier, or were they more likely, because they were perhaps doing it part-time or whatever, to try to find higher education in the places where they were already missioned and teaching?
I would have to, well, first of all, the Oblate Sisters experience with color and the Sisters of the Holy Family experience with color were very different.
I understand that.
The Oblate Sisters really were quite inclusive in having no rules about color in terms of membership requirement, whereas from their beginning, and of course of the circumstances of their founding, the Sisters of the Holy Family really did have pretty stringent color requirements. Now, as to whether the Oblate Sisters attended Xavier, I think that would probably not be the case unless they were in New Orleans, which they were not, because of the extra expense of having to board them somewhere. But for example, they were stationed in the Midwest, and that's why so many of the sisters out there excuse me, could see their experience and could offer help. I know later on that there was certainly times that the Oblate Sisters would host Holy Family Sisters and vice versa if they ever had to attend meetings or have family there. But I can't really answer definitively what was going on with that situation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, Peggy.
Thanks, Peggy. So I see that Sharon McCarthy opened up your mic. I don't know if you have a question, but go ahead if you do.
No, I don't have a question, but
Okay.
I am glad that we're having such an interesting conversation. And
Okay.
I will turn my mic off now. But
Okay,
thanks
very
for
good. I
recognizing.
just sometimes, yeah, sometimes people just open their mic up. So, okay. So Sophia, yeah, Sophia, you have a question.
Yes. I have a question. Yes. Thank you for the presentation. Oh, let me get so you can see my face. Where am I? We'll start my video. Right. Thank you for the presentation. And it's fascinating because we were taught by the Oblate Sisters of Providence in Wilson, North Carolina in the 1950s. And it never occurred to us to question if they had higher education degrees. Our parents were not concerned about their higher education degrees. Our parents were concerned that those Black nuns looked like us, their Black children, that they loved us, that they expected excellence of us, and we delivered. So I am always so thankful for being educated to become a radical Black feminist by the radical Black feminist Oblate Sisters of Providence in the 1950s in semi-rural North Carolina.
Well, I love that. Thank you very much. You know, as the issues that came up were really from the bishops it was not the parents who were giving the problem. The parents were very supportive of the Oblate Sisters, but this whole regimen of having to meet state requirements was what motivated most of the bishops to seek this kind of education. It was, I think, probably an interesting transition for all of the sisters from the early 19th century to the late 19th century, whether they were white or Black, because this kind of specific regimented requirements was something very new. The white sisterhoods were in several instances able to meet it by setting up their own schools, but this was not possible for the Oblate Sisters, or perhaps for any sisterhood of color, because of the limited financial conditions under which they worked.
Yeah, we knew that the white Catholic school had better resources, was larger, had more things, but we were totally happy with our teachers and our resources because the teacher expectation and their love and their commitment to excellence for us, that's what mattered.
Well, I think I agree with you completely. And I think that in talking about the need for Black Black teachers for Black students, one of the Oblate Sisters wrote a master's thesis on this topic, saying virtually the same kinds of things, that they had more expectations of their students and a greater love and a shared racial history.
Yes, very important, very important.
Sophia, I'm just curious, what about your education lent to your Black feminism? I love that. I mean, it's so cool to hear you talking. I'm like, well, so what about the Oblates? You know,
the
spark
thing
that
about the Oblates is that they were like favorite aunties who were wild without being wild. So their independence, you know, I wanted to be like them, to be able to jump rope with the children and shoot marbles and do all of that and do great pageants for the Holy Mother, all of that, the
Wow.
pageantry. I love the pageantry, but mostly it was about, you know, training me to be a skilled orator, a skilled debater, a communicator, a stand-up
Wow.
straight kind of person. That's what I
Wow.
got from them. Yes.
Wow. Well, it paid off, obviously. So
Yeah,
great.
I'm
Thank
writing
you
my
so
memoir.
much.
I'm writing my
That's-
memoirs now, and I'm going back down memory lane. And
Oh
so
my gosh.
I haven't found anything written about this particular period, so I may have to write it.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Sophia. That's so much fun to listen to your, your stories about your educational experience. So thanks a lot. Appreciate that. So I'm looking here at the list. So I don't know, Edward, if you have a question, your mute, the microphone is open. So I don't know if you have a question.
Yes,
Okay, go ahead.
you're in. Okay, hi, Diane, how are you?
Okay.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen you since a long time, Ed Brett.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, how
good to
are
see
you?
you, Ed. I'm
And
fine.
good to see you. Okay. What Peggy Thompson had asked before, if I remember correctly, it's been a long time, but I believe Xavier University, when at least when the Sisters of the Holy Family had to have college degrees, Xavier wasn't at that time offering bachelor degrees in education, so they couldn't go there. So what they did, of course, was go with the Sisters of Charity, who very graciously offered to come down to New Orleans at Loyola and to educate them during the summer there. And as time went on, which you probably already know, a new president at Jesuit, at Loyola, a Jesuit president, was afraid that he was going to lose accreditation for Loyola by having Black students get, yes, get accredited. So he basically took all the course accreditation away from them, and they lost everything that they had done up to that time. So it was pretty rough times for the Sisters of the Holy Family too.
Well, Ed, I'm sure it was, and I consider you the expert on the Sisters of the Holy Family. I think that happened too at Catholic universities.
Yes.
That at the beginning, there were some people who were admitted, but not, how can I say this? Some of them were so, what they call passe blanc, they could pass for white, that it didn't seem to be a problem. But then something happened and they did not allow Black people in again for I don't know how long. And then it opened up. So part of this was the idea that you had to, I think Father Gillard would say, that you had to decide you were going to be Catholic in the true sense, or you're going to be Catholic in a sense that pays too much attention to what social mores allow. And Father Gillard was very supportive of the sisters who, even in the Midwest and in the Mid-Atlantic area, were really taking a risk. I mean, I think I was able to mention briefly that the Oblate Sisters were very grateful to these sisters who would open their institutes to them, because they knew that's the whole idea of Jim Crow, racial segregation. So that if you went against that, you were really taking a risk.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it's
Thanks,
great seeing
Ed.
you again.
Good to see
Thank you. Thanks so much. I saw that Susan Kenny had a question, but I don't know. Now your hand is down, so maybe you don't have one now, but if you want to ask a question, no? No. Okay, very good. All right. Let's see here. So we have Mary Cabrini. Durkin, do you have a question? You'll have to unmute yourself, Mary.
Sorry. Yes, Doctor, I thank you for this whole presentation, which I found interesting and inspiring. And I do want to say that I treasure my signed copy of your book from when I was working
Thank
with
you.
Mary Virginie. And it strikes me that that all the story that you have unfolded in many ways, but this evening with particular emphasis on a certain period, is sparked by the inspiration and example of the servant of God, Mother Lang. And so I don't know if you would want to say anything about it, how her spirit remained inspiring as the sisters dealt with and confronted these things.
Well, yes, I can certainly say something about that. Mother Lang was a strong woman, and she certainly understood the racial situation in the United States. And that's why one of the quotes I frequently use from her is that the Oblate sisters expected all the respect that is due to their state and to the habit that they wear. So in a sense, Mother Lang's declaration, if you will, that we deserve the same kind of respect that any white sister would get, was another example of how you could use your religious vocation and your religious dedication as a way of declaring your humanity, which was certainly denied in the antebellum period. And frankly, we can see that that is a lingering tradition that we still are working on, hopefully today. But Mother Lang was always a model. Even after her death, sisters would use her as someone that did not let obstacles get in their way of professing their faith and of serving their ministry to Black people.